Texas House Bill 3783. Now, I'm a custody strategist who helps survivor parents to build a strategy for court. Before we start, always a caveat that just because something has been put into law, it doesn't mean it's going to make a difference for your case yet. This stuff can take a while to really make a difference. But it is a law. And if you have a lawyer who understands it and is ready to use it, then you might be in really good shape. Let's talk about what's going on with Texas House Bill 3783. That became law in the 2025 legislative session, and it significantly alters the landscape of court-ordered counseling in child custody disputes. The type of counseling that I'm talking about is reunification, but I get asked a lot about reunification therapy. What does that mean? Is it good or is it not? And I find a lot of what the activists are doing, wonderful, fantastic work. I find what they're doing to be of interest, obviously, to what we are doing in court. Now, this law, which took effect on September 1 of 2025, or immediately upon a 2/3 vote, it primarily targets and restricts the use of certain types of reunification therapy in Texas family courts. Let's talk about the key provisions and the impacts of this bill. So with restrictions, these restrictions are going to be on counseling practices, right? So there's this prohibition of isolation. The law prohibits a court from ordering any form of counseling that requires the isolation of a child from their family, school, religious community, or other sources of support. This includes preventing the child from contacting a parent or other family member. Another restriction, no out-of-state stays. That bans court-ordered counseling that requires a child to stay overnight or for multiple days in an out-of-state location or other location, regardless of whether a parent accompanies the child. This directly addresses those controversial reunification camps and similar programs like that. Also, there's a ban on coercive tactics. What does that mean? Well, it prohibits the use of threats of force, undue coercion, or verbal abuse against a child as part of court-ordered counseling. So it's looking at that coercive control piece. It also bans custody changes. So the bill prevents a court from ordering counseling that includes a temporary or permanent change in the periods of possession of or access to a child. So this could be good and bad, right? Because if we've got the parent who is the protective parent who still is not able to access their child, it could stand in the way of them really getting that relationship with their children back in place. But for the most part, this is really battling those children who are just ripped out of people's arms to be taken somewhere because they're being alienated. Whether or not that's true, whether it's the abuser who is claiming this or the other parent, it is not good for children, is what this bill is saying, right? Now, another key component is that it's addressing family violence and sexual abuse safeguards, right? First, there's a mandatory consideration of abuse. So the law requires courts to consider evidence of family violence or sexual abuse when deciding whether to order counseling. There's no joint counseling for victims and perpetrators, finally. So if credible evidence of family violence or sexual abuse is presented, the court cannot order a victim to participate in joint counseling sessions with the perpetrator. It also prohibits the court from requiring a victim to pay for that type of counseling. So if that's what the bill says, we have to think about, okay, but first we have to be believed that there was family violence, that there was sexual abuse. Now, sexual abuse is almost impossible to get the court to understand and believe it. There's not going to be recordings of it likely at all, and it's very, very difficult to prove that there was any sexual abuse happening. Sometimes even disclosures are not taken seriously and are believed to be the result of coaching. I'm sure that this has happened to a lot of you protective parents out there. And family violence, well, getting that evidence is so key. And it's not the hardest thing in the world to get that evidence, but it can be very difficult to capture evidence of all of the family violence that occurs, all of the violence that occurs from this person who is your co-parent. So this bill also speaks to professional qualifications. The bill specifies that a court-ordered mental health professional, MHP, must have a background in family therapy and a mental health license that requires a master's degree. It also requires the professional to have training in the dynamics of family violence if the court deems it relevant. Now, when it comes to training in family violence and domestic violence, whatever it is that they are calling it, this is something that gets a little bit tricky. We don't know how good the training was. We don't know how many hours they've spent really studying the deeper issues of domestic violence and being able to understand verbal violence, coercive control, other things like that. And so this is something obviously that we always have to keep an eye on. Hopefully, a good lawyer would be able to show that there isn't the right kind of training or enough training for what is going on in any individual case, any particular case, should that be what's happening. And a word on having the family therapy, a lot of times these family therapists do have training in social work, like in LCSW, for example. They are aware of what domestic violence is like. They know what it looks like. They're able to identify trauma. They may have studied internal family systems, IFS. And if you are able to find a family therapist who is a level 2 or level 3 IFS practitioner, that's going to likely give you someone who's more skilled at seeing what is actually going on in the abusive parent's household when your child has to go over for parenting time with them before that abuser is really stopping the abuse if possible, right? If possible. Proponents of HB 3783, obviously including its author, stated that the bill was necessary to ban unproven and abusive techniques in the reunification therapy industry. They argued that some of these programs, often called reunification camps, cause lifelong trauma and are a form of coercive control. There are a lot of different reports from children into adults who have survived these camps and talk about what it was like in there. You are going to find children from reunification camps who come out the other side praising the camps as well. So what you're really looking at is all of these bad camps are the ones that are causing enough destruction that the industry of reunification camps itself is just not something that's making good sense, is sort of what they're talking about in this bill. The law does not completely ban all forms of reunification or family therapy either, but rather it places significant limitations on the specific practices that were deemed harmful and non-evidence-based. So the new law is applicable to all pending and future family lawsuits and is considered a material and substantial change of circumstances that could warrant modifying existing court orders. So for those of you who are looking to modify your court orders due to reunification therapy of any kind, and you're in Texas, this is something that you may want to look at. Go back to your lawyer. If you wish you had a different lawyer for whatever reason, go find yourself a new lawyer and bring this in. Remember, the more documentation, the more evidence you're bringing in, that's going to make a difference for your case regardless. Just having legislation isn't going to do it for you, right? I'm the creator of The Custody Blueprint. And to be honest with you, the biggest thing we're always working on besides strategy, since I'm a strategist, is the evidence, right? As well as the mindset. And the particular way that we're putting together with the blueprint is not something that you're going to let go of just because there's a law that could be helpful to your case. You still want to have your case ready to go, almost as if you're starting over in a way. You really want to put that detail, that work, that time into it. It's very triggering. It's very hard. But if you're looking to take this law in Texas and apply it to your case, then you will want to do that work so that you can be successful with it. Okay, if anybody needs help in any way putting together their case for this, get in touch with us at thecustodyblueprint.com. You can find our links in the bio or in the captions. Like, follow, subscribe. If you want to learn more about how the Custody Blueprint can help your case, just as we've been doing for the past 10 years.